fascinated by Japan, not in the typical weeaboo sense of moving to Japan and studying to become a samurai, but something about the country has always been really interesting to me, and I've always wanted to visit. So when my family started planning a mega trip to visit Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, and Universal Studios Osaka, years of daydreaming and fantasizing suddenly became real. Landing in Tokyo was very surreal, and the very real culture shock of having to communicate and get around in a foreign country and culture settled in. Now, I had been attempting to learn some Japanese in the months leading up to our trip, the keyword being attempting. But when it came time to actually use any of my practice, my brain completely shut down and I forgot how to speak any Japanese, or even English. I became a stuttering mess. But eventually, we managed to find our way to our bus and headed along the way to the Tokyo Disneyland resort. Sitting in the bus and watching the world go by, reality felt more real than usual. The sights, sounds, smells all felt incredibly vivid, as if I was experiencing them for the first time, and ordinarily mundane things became very exciting. As well as being surrounded by the Japanese language, which was a constant reminder that I was very far away from home. It really felt like the start of an incredible adventure. The hotel we stayed at was very interesting and exciting, and I had in fact actually visited this very same hotel many years ago. However, I was not fully sentient, I was a young child. However, it was a special moment for my family because we were revisiting the same hotel that we all came to together on our last trip all those years ago, and retreading the footsteps of loved ones that weren't with us or are no longer around, and it was quite profound and moving. The hotel itself is incredibly beautiful. It's a very large building. The main atrium area is this enormous indoor courtyard. It almost feels like a little world within itself. We've got restaurants, shops, convenience stores, and much more to look at. Our rooms were very nice, and it took a bit of adjusting given that the culture is slightly different. The room was very cozy and spacious and had a pleasant atmosphere. We settled down for the evening to get some rest for our visit to Tokyo Disneyland. We slept very well. I got up a little bit earlier than the others and enjoyed the view from the balcony, where, to my disbelief, I had a perfect view of Mount Fuji, which I was not prepared for in the slightest. I had no idea that was going to happen. It was incredible. It's an image that's burned permanently into my retinas. I'll never forget that. So we left the hotel and made our way along to the Monorail, which is the main form of transport around the Tokyo Disneyland resort area. This can take you around all the main hotels and the Xperi shopping area, and arriving at the park was an incredible experience. I hadn't been to one of the larger Disney parks for a long time since I was a child. The last sizable Disney park I visited was Disneyland Paris when I was about 12 years old. We had been to Hong Kong Disneyland a couple of times before Japan, but this was on a different level. To say it was busy would be a massive understatement, and that may sound daunting or intimidating at first, but generally speaking, from my very anecdotal experience and broad generalization, I found the culture in Japan to be very conscientious and orderly, and despite the fact that it was incredibly busy, it never felt rushed or stressful being amongst so many people. For the most part, people seemed to follow a lot of unspoken rules, which were very easy to intuitively slip into and adopt for yourself. People formed lines, waited their turns, and were very patient. And although the lines to get into the park were sizable, it didn't feel like long at all until we were finally making our way through the entrance gates. During our visit to Japan, we split our days up at the parks over a stretch of time, so we got to experience Tokyo Disneyland both during Halloween time and Christmas time. But our first impression was during Halloween, and I was pretty blown away. It was definitely much larger than Hong Kong Disneyland, and very unique in its own right. As soon as you enter the park in the morning, you'll see dozens of characters in the main entrance area. It's a fantastic spot if you're into photography photography or videography because you can see all of your favorite characters here. Although it's definitely modeled after Disney in Florida, there are a few differences that set it apart from its sister park. The most notable thing would have to be Main Street. And the Main Street area in Tokyo Disneyland is actually called the World Bazaar. So I 100% kept forgetting this, so you'll have to forgive me for calling it Main Street over and over again because it's not really a main street, it's like a few different streets. So just ignore my stupidity. And the World Bazaar is covered up with a glass ceiling to make it weatherproof and suitable for any time of year. I was a big fan of this. I thought this was a fantastic idea and it gave the Main Street area a very unique feel, which I was a big fan of. It wouldn't be a Disney park without talking about the castle. And the Tokyo Disneyland castle is very impressive. It's very large. It's sort of that quintessential Disneyland look. You see it right as soon as you enter the park with the Walt and Mickey statue. A great first impression. Being an aspiring filmmaker and hobbyist photographer and videographer, I felt like a kid in a candy shop. There was so much stuff to look at and I wanted to film it all. It was beautiful. There's a lot to look at on Main Street and it's all incredibly interesting. We did have a slight plan of attack for our first day because we were visiting right before the time that Monsters Inc. would be closing for a maintenance period. So that was the first attraction we wanted to get on. But before that, we wanted to grab a bite to eat. One thing to keep in mind at Tokyo Disneyland is, given that it's so busy, it's quite rare to find one of the sit-down dining restaurants where you'll just be able to sit down immediately and have a table. You generally have to wait, make a reservation until you can actually get inside. Luckily, we didn't have to wait too long for this place, and when we got inside, I was blown away by the awesome atmosphere. It was sort of modeled after the romanticized vision of an old school diner you might see in an Art Deco Americana style painting. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it in here and I'd love to go back here again one day. To eat, I ordered a Japanese curry and a coffee. One thing to note in Japan is coffee, as we're used to down here in Australia, is not quite as common. Lattes, cappuccinos, flat whites, long blacks, they're not quite as much of a thing in Japan. It's a bit more old school, filter coffee and coffee creamer. So that took a little bit of time to get used to. The curry itself was delicious. I love this so much. And just look at it, it's awesome. I felt so terrible eating it because I didn't want to destroy this piece of art. We also enjoyed some desserts, which were very tasty as well. The restaurant was quite busy, and during our visit to Hong Kong on the way to Japan, we became quite familiar with cosplay culture and how prevalent it is in this part of the world. And I was already impressed with the cosplayers in Hong Kong, but here in Tokyo, it's on a completely different level. The amount of cosplayers here was unreal, and the quality of the costumes was honestly professional quality. It was like visiting a fashion show, just seeing all the amazing costumes and characters walking around the park. After filling ourselves up with Baymax themed curry, we made our way out of the restaurant and headed over to get in line for the Monsters Inc. ride, which was a very long wait, which was somewhat daunting as someone who has leg pain issues. The prospect of standing in line for a couple of hours was not the most pleasant idea for me, but I was pleasantly surprised because Tokyo Disneyland has something I think every single park should have, which is lots of semi-seat areas along the railing for you to sit on while you wait, so you don't literally have to stand the entire time. Such a simple idea that I can't believe hasn't become more prevalent around the world. I had seen some warnings from other taller guests who had been on this ride prior to visiting that seats and restraints aren't exactly the most spacious, and I have to agree, they definitely weren't the most spacious seats in the world. I did have to sort of squeeze in there, and that was the one downside of the whole experience. Other than that, the ride itself was really, really cool. Such a great idea. It's basically the same concept as some of the dark shooting rides that you get around the world, but the difference with this is the purpose isn't to rack up some high score or get points, but to activate interactive elements around the ride itself using a flashlight rather than a gun or shooter device. And it was so much fun not having to think about the screens and the point systems or the game, and just enjoy the ride experience right in front of you. It's such a fun experience with lots of goofy humor and physical comedy, and it really captured the spirit of the film, which I was a huge fan of growing up.
Pooh, 新しいヘルメットだよ。かわいいだろ。マイクラが好き。また
The ride itself lasts maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and I wish I could have ridden it again, but like I said, this was going into a maintenance period, so we only got to ride it the once, but I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend checking it out. Very unique ride among Disney's ride lineup around the world. As is common with Disney parks, each ride seems to have an exit gift shop, and the Monsters Inc. gift shop was really cool. There's so much interesting stuff in here to look at, and the merchandise I found during the time I visited was very affordable. I'm used to the price range for merch at theme parks being well out of the bounds of what I would be comfortable spending, but I found it to be the complete opposite at Tokyo Disneyland. It was so affordable, and there were so many interesting things that I wanted to buy that I had to rein myself in and stop myself from grabbing a trolley full of merch. Monsters Inc. was basically the only attraction during our trip to Tokyo Disneyland that was restricted by the time we were visiting, and I'll go through the areas of the park land by land to share my experience. I was quite a big fan of Tomorrowland at Tokyo Disneyland. It's definitely very much in line with the somewhat retro-futuristic vibe. Monsters Inc. is the first attraction you see. Moving past that, you have Star Tours, which I was super excited for. Star Tours was one of my favorite rides at Disneyland Paris when I was a kid, and I was particularly excited to experience this ride on this visit because since the last time I had been on Star Tours, they had added a bunch of new planets and flight routes that you could enjoy. As a massive Star Wars fan, the queue experience was fantastic. There's so many interesting things to look at in the queue, but my favorite would have to be seeing C-3PO and R2-D2 and lots of other droids and just the general aesthetic of Star Wars in real life. It was so special. We went on Star Tours quite a few times during our visit, and it's such a blast. It's so exciting not knowing which flight route you're gonna get, and somehow we kept getting Jar Jar Binks, which was both irritating and hilarious. The ride itself is very enjoyable, and a large reason to why it's so appealing is because you're enjoying it with all the other guests at the same time. It feels like this sort of community consciousness feeling. Everyone's laughing and shouting out and having a blast, and there's lots of silly moments during the ride. I love this so much, and I really want to re-experience it because they've added a few new flight routes which you can enjoy, including the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Andor. As you exit Star Tours and make your way down the steps, you come across the Galactic Pizza Port, which is a fast food style dining option, which is absolutely amazing. I love this place so much. The main centerpiece in here is this insane animatronic right above the service area. With so many moving parts and gizmos and gadgets, it felt like something straight out of a children's book, and I just wanted to stand in there all day and stare at it. But something else caught my eye, which was far more impressive than the elaborate animatronic display. This very, very strange VHS loop on the screen, which I don't entirely understand, but I fell in love with this. I love the fact that they haven't updated this or changed it, and I hope they never do. This was the most charming, silly thing ever. It's so stupid and so fun. I love it. The food available here is excellent as well. If you're even tangentially familiar with Tokyo Disneyland, I'm sure you have come across the Toy Story Alien Mochi Sweets, which are very viral on Instagram, but are they worth the hype? I can confirm these are delicious. I love these so much. I could eat infinite amounts. I could eat these to infinity and beyond, I guess you could say. They come in a few different flavors, and my personal favorite was the chocolatey type flavor. Again, the food extremely affordable and also available with lots of collector's items like little plates and things that you can take home for yourself. We tried some Halloween desserts here as well, like a pumpkin pie sort of crepe thing and some other bits. It was all super delicious. We stopped by here quite a few times for a bite to eat, and also because it's one of the few places around the park where you can get water fountain water. Unfortunately, something that doesn't seem to be quite as prevalent in Tokyo Disneyland, which is common around the world. I had to bust out my broken Japanese and say, where is the water drinking place? Which confused the staff very much. Even they didn't seem to know exactly where to find them, and they had to get out some maps and try to help me work it out. And this seemed to be the only place where you could fill up your water bottle, so keep that in mind if you're visiting. Moving on from the Galactic Pizza Port, we walked very sadly past the Space Mountain site, which was gated off for the construction of the new Space Mountain, which is going to be much larger, more modern. So that was a shame we didn't get to experience Space Mountain at Tokyo Disneyland, but we did get to experience something potentially better. Well, not exactly, but we did get to see it. This is a phenomena entirely unique to Tokyo Disneyland, the Baymax ride. It's a fun little flat ride that spins around and is meant to be quite fun. Well, that doesn't sound very interesting, Mr. YumYum. There's plenty of flat rides around the world. Shut up, viewer. This is no ordinary flat ride. This ride has its own original songs and a cult-like following of fans that specifically visit the park to stand by the ride and dance to the music, because each song has its own specific choreographed dance, which the staff do and the guests do on the ride, and the guests do watching the ride. This is an experience in itself, just seeing this. I'm not sure you would encounter something like this anywhere else in the world, and it was honestly incredible. It was infectiously fun, and although I'd never consider dancing like that in public, I had a huge grin on my face the whole time watching. Another ride we didn't get to experience on our trip was Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters, which closed permanently just before we visited in October to undergo a big overhaul for a new Wreck-It Ralph themed ride set to open 2026 or 2027. There was also a Stitch encounter, which we didn't experience on our trip either. And Tomorrowland also features a show, Club Mouse Beat, which we didn't get a chance to check out. Given that the park is so big, there's so many attractions to look at, and the ride queue times are significantly longer than other parks around the world, we really had to be very deliberate with which attractions we did check out and which attractions we didn't. Hopefully we can experience some of the things we missed out on another trip in the future. But one last thing we got to enjoy in Tomorrowland was the Tomorrowland Terrace, which is another sit-down dining option, which is much larger than the Pan Galactic pizza port, and the food here was really tasty. I highly recommend eating here, especially because you get some great views of the parades in the daytime and nighttime. Moving along from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland, we encountered one of the most popular and unique attractions at Tokyo Disneyland, the Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast. This ride is in a sort of micro land, which is basically entirely themed to Beauty and the Beast. I think it's fair to say you could call this its own land within its own right. It's very impressive and highly immersive. The centerpiece being, of course, the Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast, which is impossible to miss. The ride facade for this is like a work of art. It's beautiful. It's probably one of the best ride facades anywhere in the world, and I would argue it's even more impressive than the Tokyo Disneyland castle itself. It feels like it's come straight out of the movie. The forced perspective really makes the castle feel like it's towering above you, and it creates such an incredible first impression. You literally feel like you're in the movie. I can't quite capture the magic of the theming here. It's something you just have to hope you can experience one day in real life, because it's outstanding. We didn't get to enjoy this attraction until the evening of one of the days during our visit, and the wait to get into this ride was lengthy. It took a couple of hours, but the time flew by. It didn't feel like waiting at all, because the ride queue experience is an experience in itself. This is already one of the best attractions in the world without even sitting down on the ride. The sheer scale and attention to detail of the facade and queue is worth experiencing itself. Yes, it takes a while, but you won't be bored. There's so much to look at in here. And coincidentally, we queued up alongside some other guests from Australia, so we had a nice chat while we waited for the ride, and we ended up calling it Mr. Beast's Castle, which I'm pretty sure it should be banned. I think that should be illegal, disrespectful. But in Mr. Beast's Castle, there's lots of things to enjoy, and I also enjoyed witnessing someone watching the movie for seemingly the first time on their phone while they waited to get on the ride. That's how long the queue was. You could watch the whole Beauty and the Beast film, which honestly is a pretty cool idea. That's a very unique way to watch a movie. You enter a pre-show room, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. My vocabulary isn't large enough to explain how insane it is, because I've seen the film countless times. It was one of my favorites, and this was the first time as an adult that anything has captured the same feeling I got from watching the movie as a kid. The spooky isolation and barely kid-friendly gothic vibe. This pre-show is incredible. It features some highly advanced animatronics, which seem to walk around and move on their own, and I was blown away. Jaw was on the floor, and I couldn't believe that the ride hadn't even started. After that, there's a bit more of a wait, and you finally enter the station and get on the very unique big teacups, and these can seat about a dozen or 16 people, and you sit in a very sort of theatrical configuration, almost like you're sitting down to watch a show, and in groups of about 4 to 6 ride vehicles, you set off into the ride itself. And boy oh boy, where do I start with this ride? Right off the bat, I was blown away. You go straight into the iconic Be Our Guest sequence, and you're in the film. part of it. You're moving around and dancing. The ride vehicles tilt and pan and bob up and down, and it's so enjoyable. It's very difficult to capture the sensation of movement. The ride may look impressive, but how it feels is impossible to capture. The sequence lasts a few minutes and it's really fun. It's really impressive. So many animatronics and great lighting effects to look at, let alone the experience of moving past the other guests and waving at each other and laughing and experiencing it together. It's not just something you experience by yourself. You share it with all the people around you without making too many broad generalizations about an entire country. It seems to me like that's part of what I perceived from the Japanese culture leaking into the ride. You genuinely feel connected with the people around, and it's very special. Next, you move along into the sequence of the film where Belle and Beast are getting closer, and this is a really beautiful section in a nice wintry scene. Belle and the Beast enjoying the snowy weather together, sort of get the sensation you're skating around on the ice. It's equally as impressive as the previous scene, but really captures the emotions of the movie and the context of the story. Next is a little transition sort of scene, which is where the drama is heightening and Gaston and the village are out to get the Beast. I would say this is possibly one part of the ride that could have been fleshed out a bit more. It does feel like it sort of glosses over that conflict in favor of the more beautiful aspects of the story. But that's just a minor complaint because there's an incredible effect where Gaston has just defeated the Beast and he's brought back to life into his human form in a mind-boggling effect, which I couldn't really fathom how they were actually doing. It's a sort of Pepper's Ghost effect, and it literally looks like the Beast transforms and you're left wondering what the heck just happened. And before you can even comprehend it, you move into the final scene, which is the iconic ballroom with the lovely music, which is very moving. And again, sharing it with a bunch of strangers and feeling connected, really beautiful and well worth the wait. I highly recommend if you can get into it. Getting off of the Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast and being blown away, you exit the ride through a little cave, and on one of our rides we exited during a fireworks show and got to enjoy the fireworks from behind a waterfall, which is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I don't think that's something you can really experience anywhere else, really, unless you're extremely rich and own a waterfall and a bunch of fireworks for some reason. That was a very magical moment. Close by to the Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast is one of the shows, Mickey's Magical Music World, which we weren't allowed to film, but was pretty incredible. I think. I'm sorry to gloss over this. I can't remember much of the show because something far more interesting happened, for me at least. For context, one of my heroes in life is Kermit the Frog. He's an inspiration as a creative introvert interested in filmmaking and directing. Growing up, we're taught that leaders have to be outgoing and extroverted and larger than life, which is always somewhat upsetting to me because I felt like in order to achieve what I want to achieve, I had to behave in a way that was not natural to me. But Kermit the Frog proved everybody else wrong. He's the leader of the Muppets, and he's also very introspective and much more subtle than what you usually expect from a leader, especially of a group of chaotic Muppets. So Kermit the Frog, he's very important to me. He's been an example of how to achieve great things creatively, collaborate with others while still being an introvert, and I love him.
I'm leaving.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks.
And during my trip, I carried around Kermit the Frog little toy with me to share my appreciation for this amazing character. And as we lined up for this show, out of all the seats in the audience, this very friendly woman cosplaying as Kermit the Frog alongside a life-size Kermit puppet was right next to us. So I had to get a picture with her. I was very excited to meet a fellow Kermit enthusiast. I'm not usually superstitious, but sometimes life seems to throw something special in your path, and you just have to appreciate the magic. It was so cool, and I don't remember much of the show. I do remember during the show she was playing with the Kermit puppet, making him like mouth along to the music and stuff. It was so awesome. I guess that's testament to how special the Disney parks are. It's a place where people feel comfortable sharing what they enjoy and what's special to them, and it opens the opportunities for lovely, memorable moments like that. Moving on past the show, we also enjoyed one of the delicious ice creams in the area, which were themed, very cool, and made our way along past this really cool fountain statue of Gaston, and a really nice shop with some fantastic merchandise. Some big Gaston fans here in Japan. Seems to be very popular. You can spot him during the Halloween parade, which was one of the highlights of the trip. There is also a food outlet in this Beauty and the Beast area, La Taverne de Gaston, where they serve some French cuisine, as well as Tokyo Disneyland's answer to Butterbeer, the special berry cheers, which was a kind of soda with some foaming cream. Fantasyland is home to all the family-friendly rides, or at least it's supposed to be. And one of my most anticipated rides at Tokyo Disneyland was one of the scary rides, the spooky rides. Foreboding, ominous, disturbing. Haunted Mansion? No. Snow White. This ride has no right being this terrifying and traumatic, and I had a huge grin on my face from start to finish. It was ridiculous. How on earth Tokyo Disneyland thinks this is a good idea for children to ride is beyond the realms of comprehension. Is it a sensible decision? Probably not. Is it hilarious? Absolutely. I commend them for the insanity. I love it. It's far too scary for what it is. To a comedic level, it's hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. There's signs at the front warning guests about how terrifying it is. And yet it draws a very large crowd. There's a lot of other fans of the spooky vibes like me. I love this ride. Next was the Pinocchio dark ride, which I may be mistaken. I think this was the first version of the ride. I could be wrong. This was lovely. This was really great. I love the Pinocchio film. Last year, Theme Park Ogre and I went on a Pinocchio fest. For some reason, we decided to watch all of the Pinocchio movies, and we sort of burnt out after about 3 of them. So we have to finish up Pinocchio Fest sometime. This ride is great. It's such a wholesome, strange story. So many interesting moments like Pleasure Island and Monster of the Whale. Next was Peter Pan's Flight. This is a classic, very memorable attraction from my childhood visits to Disneyland Paris. I love this ride. It's very magical, and it was very special to share it with my father because he's a huge Peter Pan fan. It was lovely. It was really nice sitting next to him on the ride. It made me tear up a little bit, sharing something very special. I know I hyped up the Snow White dark ride a lot, and yes, I was excited for it, but I was lying. My most anticipated ride at Tokyo Disneyland was the Haunted Mansion, because as I've mentioned countless times, huge lover of all things spooky and Halloweeny and creepy, I get a big kick out of the supernatural and mysterious sides of life, and a large reason for that is because Memories riding the Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris, which left an enormous impression. That's a huge influence to my whole life, and I was super excited to ride this, not only because it was the Haunted Mansion, but because it was the Nightmare Before Christmas overhaul, which again is one of my favorite films. It's very special to me. Much like Kermit the Frog, Jack Skellington is one of my heroes, another somewhat introverted leader character, and I always found his story to be the perfect representation of how it feels to try and capture a creative idea that you're excited about. You discover something, you're super passionate, you become obsessed, and you want to share it with the world, so you try to express it somehow. Maybe it goes wrong, maybe it's completely off the mark, but the act of creativity and expression itself inevitably leads to a special collaboration and connection. Jack Skellington, another hero, he's great. I love this so much. This was so special. The whole vibe was so whimsical and silly and creepy, and I had my jaw on the floor the whole time. I couldn't comprehend how incredible it was. I love it so much. It's very popular as well, and the line to get onto it is very long. But luckily we timed it very well a few times because it is an older ride and it's definitely got its fair share of technical complications from time to time. So if it goes down, it's probably going to be up and about again soon. So it's well worth just sticking around for a little bit and waiting for it to open again and then just getting into the line as soon as you can. Great thing to do while you wait for an attraction to open is enjoy a bite to eat. And there's a couple of different options to choose from. in Fantasyland. We already touched upon Le Taverne de Gaston, but there are a few other options as well. There's a sort of fast food style option with some pretty simple fare. You can get some tea or coffee here. It was very cozy when we sat here in the afternoon. It was a bit on the chilly side, given that we visited during autumn. A nice, somewhat crisp air and warming your hands around a nice cup of filter coffee. There is also the Alice in Wonderland dining option in Fantasyland, which is very cool. This is highly themed, very immersive, and very fantastical. There's lots of interesting stuff to look at in here. Some very tasty food. I definitely recommend checking this out. It's also worth mentioning one thing that Tokyo Disneyland does incredibly well, and Japan as a whole, is vending machines. The vending machines in Japan are on a whole different level from your comprehension. Not only can you get some nice ice cold drinks from the vending machines here, you can also enjoy hot drinks. You can get tea, you can get coffee, nice and hot. So you don't have to line up in a cafe, wait around. You can just go straight to the vending machine and get a nice warm drink. And they've got lots of interesting options to choose from. My personal favorite was this maple syrup flavored tea drink, and I went through a lot of them. They're very affordable. I'm talking like $1.50 equivalent. None of this $6 or $7 nonsense you have to deal with in Australia. It's dirt cheap, and it tastes all the better for it. And last but not least, in Fantasyland was possibly the most special attraction. I'm not sure if this is the case for everyone. It is a lovely attraction, but for my family specifically, it holds deep significance. As I mentioned briefly, the last time we visited Tokyo Disneyland, I was very young. I don't quite remember it, but we traveled with many family members who are no longer around, and this was an absolute favorite. It was something the whole family enjoyed, and it's one of my first memories, actually. This is one of the very few things I not only remember from this trip, but one of my first memories that I can recount. This was the Winnie the Pooh ride. My memory of this attraction was very special. It's wrapped up in a nice cozy warm blanket with the scent of caramel popcorn. I can remember it very vividly. I can still feel it now, and I remember the colors of the ride and lights and sounds and everything and the movement. So this was very profound to re-experience again. It was a lovely ride and made me tear up a lot. It was very moving to re-experience something from a special time in your family's history, and personally to give more context to a very early and special memory of childhood. It was lovely. It's the sort of thing I cherish very deeply. The ride itself is fantastic. It's so wholesome and incredible, and Winnie the Pooh is again one of my heroes. I love his relaxed, chilled out vibe. He just goes with the flow, enjoys eating some honey. Again, similar to the Beauty and the Beast ride, the thing that's really difficult to capture about this attraction specifically is the motion, the movement of the ride vehicles, because you're doing all kinds of interesting stuff, bouncing up and down, rocking and things. It's just so nice, and as a lover of autumn, it's my absolute favorite season. I've got like a deep spiritual affinity with autumn for some reason. Just the whole experience of this ride was beautiful. We went on this ride a couple of times, once sort of towards the front of the start of our visit, and it was actually the last ride we experienced as well. And the last time I rode it made me very emotional. It's one of those things that just hits you deep in the gut and resonates on a very deep level. I can't really articulate it. I'm sure it's probably specific to me and my family and my memories, and just a beautiful memory. Yes, it's nice to visit interesting places and go to different countries and things, but at the end of the day, it's all about the memories. Nearby Fantasyland is Toontown, and this is probably the area of the park that we spent the least time in. It is very impressive. I'm not sure I have a huge impression of it because the times that we visited were only sort of in the evening or to find a spot for the parade, which again I'll come back to later. I didn't really get a proper look around here, so I can't give a huge explanation of it. The main attraction here would have to be the Who Framed Roger Rabbit ride. It's very whimsical, very silly, and it's very confusing because the ride vehicles have a wheel, which I'm still not entirely sure if it actually does anything, but I was spinning it like crazy as if it did, and I don't know if it was helping or not, because we sort of went through in a blur. I couldn't quite see what was going on. It was very difficult to tell what was happening, let alone film it. I do know this is one of the last versions of this attraction in the world that has Jessica Rabbit in her original iconic costume. I believe in the US she now wears a yellow rain jacket. Definitely an interesting ride, very cartoony, which is the whole theme of Toontown. It's like stepping into a cartoon. Everything's disproportionate, wonky, and overly colourful. It's definitely more of the kid area of the park, I would have to say. I'll have to re-experience it one day to give a better recount. Next is possibly my favourite part of Tokyo Disneyland, Critter Country. As I briefly touched upon, I'm a huge fan of autumn. It's very magical to me. It's my favourite time of year. Or at least it was back when I lived in New Zealand and we got to enjoy seasons. Because on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia, seasons, they're not really a thing. It's variations of summer and a couple of months of slight chilliness. And due to that, I've possibly built up autumn even more heavily in my brain and romanticized it. And Critter Country was like straight out of the picture book of my soul, the romanticized vision of autumn. It was perfection. It was beautiful. It's that very like romantic Americana, late 1800s sort of vibe. It's obviously stripped away of a lot of the very real historic drama, which is to be expected. You're at Disneyland after all. And what's left behind is the beautiful imagery and romantic atmosphere. The main attraction of this area is Splash Mountain. The last of the Splash Mountains, in fact, because, of course, in the US, it's now Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and I, of course, love Princess and the Frog. It's one of my favorite Disney films, but from what I've heard, the new version of the ride doesn't quite live up to the same standard as Splash Mountain. And this was my first time experiencing this ride. I was a little bit nervous because I'm not the most thrill-seeking theme park guest in the world, and given the impressive ride facade which really towers above you because of the incredible forced perspective and attention to detail, it was very convincing. It really looked like a huge mountain, and the drop seemed very large from what I could see, but Theme Park Ogre assured me it was very tame and very family friendly, and I do trust Theme Park Ogre, but something in my gut was still very nervous. Again, this is one of those rides that has a very impressive queue and facade, and you could argue that that would be an attraction in itself. Entering Splash Mountain, queuing amongst the dimly lit tunnels and brambles and things, it was so interesting to look at, and the ride itself was insanely beautiful. This is hands down one of the most beautiful theme park attractions in the world, in the universe. I don't even know where to start. It's so charming. The animatronics, the music, the whimsical vibes, the lighting, everything is as close to perfection as you could get. And I'm very glad that they've retained this version of the ride. It's one of those things that's very difficult to capture on camera, partly because the ride attendants told me to turn my camera off. I think they didn't realize I had a camera strap and everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film this attraction, and honestly, I'm kind of glad for that, because I got to soak it up with my eyes, ingrain it deep in my brain. It's going to be there for a long time, hopefully. This is a very long ride with lots of different sections, lots of different size drops, and I can confirm it's not scary at all. It's just a pleasant experience from start to finish. So take that as your advice. Always listen to Theme Park Ogre. I won't attempt to capture everything that's special about the ride. It's really something that you sort of have to go into semi-blind. I hadn't seen too many POVs of this attraction, and I think that's the best way to experience it, because there's so much in here that is particularly enjoyable because of experiencing it for the first time with your own fresh perspective. It just feels like having a nice cup of hot chocolate, wrapping up in a cozy blanket, reading a lovely book, and getting a nice early sleep. It's beautiful. And one thing I've never seen anyone mention is the fact that the ceiling is themed. The whole ceiling is covered with leaves and branches and things. It really feels like you're deep in the woods in the forest. It's very unique. As you exit Splash Mountain, there's a nice area to sit and enjoy the scenery and the atmosphere. This is one of the most special moments from my trip to Tokyo Disneyland. As I said, we split our days up at the parks over a few days on our trip, and by the time we came to this area, it was starting to get a bit chillier. It was more of the Christmas vibe, and Theme Park Ogre and myself had convinced the other members of our family to give Splash Mountain a go, because, like me, they were not too crazy about drops. Luckily, they braved it out, and it was an amazing memory. It was so lovely to share it together. So coming out of that lovely memory, we were enjoying the atmosphere around here, nice and cozy with the wintry vibes. We got some hot chocolates, found a seat under the trees, which was enough to make me happy. The train was passing by. I'm kind of spacing out sharing these memories because they're so vivid in my brain. This park clearly has such incredible imagery that it creates memories that transcend sentience. I remember images from my very early childhood when I could barely string together a sentence, let alone a thought. And the images exist in my mind beyond the realm of words. That sounds far more profound than it should. But what I mean by that is the images in my brain are so vivid from this place that even if I become senile and crazy, I'm sure I'll still remember the autumn leaves, Splash Mountain, the lovely atmosphere, the train choo-chooing by, and Pluto and his gang doing the conga. Wait, what? This is not something I expected to enjoy so much. This was not on my bingo list of things to look out for at Tokyo Disneyland, but it ended up being one of the top 5 highlights from the trip. Whoever was performing as Pluto is operating on a level of comedic genius that only the greats can reach. This performer was incredible. They were so funny. I've never laughed so much seeing a theme park performer in my life. The way Pluto and his friends were working the crowd and just wandering around and like spontaneously doing the most silly stuff was so funny. It made myself and my family laugh so much our stomachs were hurting. This was awesome. Critter Country surrounds a large lake or river area, and in the middle there's an island, which we didn't get to experience this time, but there are a couple of different ways you can enjoy the scenery in Critter Country. The first is very unique. I'm not sure they have this at any other Disney park. It's the canoes. You can literally get in a canoe and row your way around the river. The people on the boat seem to be having a blast. It was very nice to look at. I'm not sure I have the physical aptitude to kayak or canoe around the rivers. As Jaws the Shark said, we're gonna need a bigger boat. Luckily they do have a bigger boat. Mark Twain. The Mark Twain Riverboat. Another absolute highlight from Tokyo Disneyland. Again, my vocabulary is not significant enough to capture the beauty. It's just lovely. That's all I can say. It's lovely. There's no better way to enjoy the scenery than hopping onto the Mark Twain Riverboat, cruising along the river, soaking in the vibes. Especially towards the evening when all the lights come on. It's just pure magic, and it reminded me of one of my favorite Halloween autumnal watches over the garden wall. Life can get stressful, responsibilities press down on you and make you seize up and get all tense, and standing up here on the Mark Twain Riverboat enjoying the autumn scenery and colors and the nice crisp evening air, I felt like I could finally breathe again. All the tension inside me just melted away like candle wax. I realize I'm being overly poetic, but it's the kind of emotions this ride inspired. Puts you in a very reflective, peaceful frame of mind. I just want to sit on that boat forever and cruise around the river in a never-ending autumn. Critter Country is right next door to Western Land, which of course features the iconic Big Thunder Mountain, which again is a ride I'm well familiar with. visiting Disneyland Paris. It was one of my absolute favorites. One of the earliest roller coasters I went on, and went on and went on and went on and went on again, over and over and over again. I was obsessed with it. It's outstanding. It's magnificent. There's only so many words you can use to describe it. I don't know much about life, but I do know one thing. If you take a Vekoma family coaster and you give it lots and lots and lots of theming, that's how you make pure magic. It's the secret recipe to a big old smile and a lot of fun. And it's the kind of magic that Disney can bottle up and dish out over and over again. It doesn't get old, it doesn't get boring, it's just as enjoyable each and every time. I love this ride. I got to ride it in the evening a couple of times. It's such a long experience with multiple lift hills, incredible theming, and amazing views of the park at nighttime. Also enjoyable in Westernland is the Country Bear Theatre, a very eccentric and interesting sit-down show experience with animatronics, lots of music. I'm sort of split on this attraction. I like it a lot. I love the music, I love the aesthetic and the experience, but the appearance of the animatronics freaks me out. They're very disturbing looking. It's like Five Nights at Freddy's or something. It feels like they're gonna leap off the stage and grab an axe and cut your head off. I don't like it. If they could fix their faces, it would be great. It's all good if I just don't look at their eyes. We enjoyed this a couple of times, one during the regular version of the show, and then the next time during the Christmas version of the show. It was very interesting experiencing both of these versions. I feel like I liked the Christmas version a little bit more. It was quite cozy and had that nice magical vibe. It's definitely worth checking out. Just keep in mind, you might be disturbed. We didn't really spend too much time in Westernland. It was sort of the area that we passed through a lot, and honestly I got the lines blurred a little bit between Westernland and Critter Country. I think earlier I was describing Mark Twain Riverboat as part of Critter Country when it is in fact part of Westernland, and when you look at the park map they are sort of like right up there in the corner together. They're practically the same area. This is definitely somewhere I'd love to explore a little bit more, hopefully in the future, maybe try out some of the restaurants and other options available. And for the final area at Tokyo Disneyland, we have Adventureland, which features some fantastic attractions. First off, you've got the Western River Railroad, which is the train that makes its way around this whole section of the park from Adventureland, Westernland, Critter Country, and back again to Adventureland. It covers a huge portion of land, and unlike other trains at Disney parks, this one is more of a ride than a transport option. It's not something that takes you from station to station. It's just one circuit that you sit down and you enjoy from start to finish. Don't get me wrong, I do love a good transport option at a theme park, but the novelty of also making it into an attraction itself, I thought was very cool. I assume, given that they didn't have to build different stations around the park and make a track that covered the whole section of the theme park itself, they were maybe able to put some of the money into the theming of it from a ride perspective itself, because you pass through lots of interesting sections of this ride. Obviously you go all around Adventureland and Westernland, passing through different caves and pass through the trees and everything, and then you go through Big Thunder Mountain itself and see the dinosaurs, because we all know the dinosaurs live inside Big Thunder Mountain. That was very interesting, very cool. This is a very enjoyable, pleasant, relaxing ride, something for the whole family. And again, without making too many broad generalizations about Japan as a culture, one thing I do know is trains are very important in Japan, and train conductors take their jobs very seriously, and this attraction felt so authentic and genuine. The uniforms the staff were wearing, the way that the conductors and drivers and everyone conducted themselves as well as the train was very special. I always love to see people taking pride in their jobs, and these staff are at the top of their game. Practically right underneath the train station you have the Jungle Cruise, which again is another excellent family friendly attraction that everyone can enjoy, and it's very relaxing and truly feels like going on an adventure, which is apt considering it's an Adventureland. You get to see lots of interesting animals and temples and tribes, and it's such a fantastic experience. One of the other highlights from our trip to Tokyo Disneyland was something that initially was quite confusing to me because I wasn't familiar with it. It was something that Theme Park Ogre kept hyping up to me, and I don't know what the official name of the attraction is, but in my brain it's called Stitchy. And this is the Stitch from Lilo and Stitch rendition of the Tiki Room in Adventureland. Another classic, beloved attraction from Disney parks around the world with a unique twist on it. This one of course features Stitch, the lovable blue fluffy alien from Lilo and Stitch, and it's a pleasure from start to finish, to say the least. We experienced this a number of times, let's just say that. It was infectiously fun every time. Stitch is adorable, and the animatronic is so full of life and character, it really feels like it's alive. The atmosphere in Adventureland is really nice, it's very immersive, and it captures the spirit of adventure. You feel like you're exploring this wondrous land, and there's lots of interesting stuff to look at. Again, we didn't have too much time to explore all of Adventureland. There's lots of other things to do here, such as the Swiss Family Treehouse and lots of dining options, which are very popular and high in demand. You have to make a reservation and get in well ahead of time. There is also a show here, which we didn't get to watch all of. I did see some of it in passing. It looked very entertaining, and similar to the Baymax ride, the fans of this show seem to be very enthusiastic and know all the moves. I was very impressed how they remember all the choreography. I felt like they should be a part of the show as well. And the final attraction for our visit to Tokyo Disneyland was Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I was so excited to ride this. Pirates of the Caribbean was a childhood favorite, and similar to the Haunted Mansion, it gave me an appreciation for pirate culture. Maybe that's the wrong turn of phrase. An appreciation for the romanticized version of pirate culture. I don't think the real pirates were quite as lovable and charming as they're made out to be in media, but in the world of Disney, the world of Adventureland, the pirates are pretty awesome. Not all that awesome. They do some pretty bad stuff, but I just like the ride, okay? Do I need to justify liking a ride? No, I like it. That's enough. Pirates of the Caribbean is a blast. A cannon blast. A lot of fun. You can't go wrong. It just works. And this is very much the classic Pirates of the Caribbean experience. It's the only version that still contains a lot of the scenes which are no longer part of the other Pirates of the Caribbean rides around the world, which I can understand, but come on, they're pirates. They weren't exactly known for going around giving presents to people. A very unique thing about Pirates of the Caribbean is it interacts with the restaurant that is next door, the Blue Bayou, which I really wanted to experience, but unfortunately we didn't get a chance to because it was so popular and so busy. But I did wave at a lot of the guests on the inside to try and leech off of their meals. No, to be friendly. It's nice to wave at people. I found at Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, Universal Studios, Osaka, people love to wave. I really appreciated that. It's like an instant sign that someone's friendly and nice. It's a nice big smile and a friendly wave. It was a habit I picked up. I started waving at everyone because I'm quite a big guy. I'm very tall. I've got resting bitchy face, I guess. I don't think I look like the most approachable person in the world, so I adopted the skill of just smiling and waving at people whenever I see them to put them at ease, hopefully. I mean, it's not every day you see a giant walking triangle. Naturally, it puts people on red alert, so you have to give them a wave. This was one of my favorite things about Japan, and I was very disappointed to discover when I returned to Australia that the rest of the country hadn't adopted the same habit as I had. I tried waving at people on rides in Australia and they blanked me or looked at me strangely. We need to spread this habit around the world. Hashtag smile and wave. So we've covered the gamut. We've made a full cycle of Tokyo Disneyland. We've been to all the different lands, we've ridden most of the rides, and it feels like I've barely touched the surface and I've been speaking for hours now, because there's still a lot of stuff to talk about here, such as Halloween and Christmas time and the parades. But first, one final dining option, making our full circuit back onto the main street, World Bazaar, and this was a really fancy looking sit-down dining option in this old school parlor style restaurant, which was very luxurious and very gourmet. I thought this was fantastic. We sat in a little booth, had fixed price menu with lots of interesting gastronomical marvels and tasty treats. This was very nice. and the restaurant was full of lots of interesting cosplayers. I believe we were sat nearby Ursula from The Little Mermaid, which was entertaining, awe-inspiring, and terrifying. So as I mentioned, we visited in the period between Halloween and Christmas time, and both times of year have very unique and exclusive offerings that you can only enjoy during that particular time of year. As I've mentioned, Halloween is one of my favorite times of year, so seeing the park transformed with all the spooky decorations and all the cosplayers around was incredible, so special. They do feature a special parade during the Halloween event as well, which I'm not sure I was quite prepared for. I didn't realize how intense the parade culture would be in Japan. It's taken very seriously, and it's very busy. I'm talking guests getting there hours in advance, reserving spaces, putting picnic blankets down, and camping out for hours to get a good spot. We weren't quite prepared for that. The first time we tried to see the parade, we thought, oh great, we've got 15 minutes. That's plenty of time to find a good spot. Meh, wrong. That's no time at all in Tokyo Disneyland. 15 minutes, you're screwed. You're not gonna find a good spot. So we split up and we made do with what we could get. We saw some of the parade, but that's about it. We didn't see all of it. It was still fun, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't tell you everything that was going on. I did get to enjoy the lead up. As I've said, the parade culture is very special and interesting, and even the lead up to the parade is an experience itself, because similar to the Baymax ride, they have lots of specific exclusive dances that they seem to teach the entire crowd. The staff teach the crowd section by section how to do a little dance with their hands, and then everyone does it during the show along with the performers, which was very cool. The parades here are beyond elaborate. The scale of them is impossible to capture given that they cover such an enormous part of land. They really go all around the entire park, and while the parades are on, it turns into a bit of a scramble to get around. I know I said Japan is generally quite orderly and follows a lot of unspoken rules, but during the parade times, everything gets quite confusing, and it's a little bit like being lost in the current. You just have to go with the flow and trust that it takes you where you want to go. So round 2, we tried to re-experience the parade, find a better vantage point, and we found a good spot right in the eye of the storm in the courtyards in front of the castle, and camped out like the other guests a little bit ahead of time, and we got a much better view from up here. But given the scale of the parade, it's very challenging to get the best footage in the world, because you can't get very close to the floats themselves without actually being there literally hours ahead of time, which many other guests beat you to. You either need to get very close or have a very long lens. And lots of other guests were much more well prepared than I was. They had what appeared to be telescopes, lenses with such a long focal distance that they could probably see into your retinas from a mile away. I think I got some decent footage. I'm not 100% satisfied with it. I think it's alright. I didn't quite know what to expect, given that I didn't really see the parade last time, so I didn't know where to look, when to look, but it was very impressive and very pleasing as a Halloween fan. Blah 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 blah. Now, for Christmas time, everything becomes so nice and cozy and magical. All the cosplayers turn back into their regular forms, which was kind of sad. I got used to seeing everyone dressed up, but in favor of their cosplay outfits, they got out their nice cozy wintry jackets and scarves and beanies, and the temperature dropped significantly. It became much chillier, and it was the most Christmassy I'd felt in years. I've grown up in the Southern Hemisphere my whole life, and I've never related to the Kiwi or Australian Christmas, you know, going to the beach, having a barbecue. I've been conditioned on Christmas movies and my Northern Hemisphere families to enjoy the cozier side of life. Fireplace and nice home-cooked meals and Christmas lights and trees and being warm and toasty, and this fit the bill. Tokyo Disneyland is already magical, but at Christmas time it becomes even more magical. So cozy with all the trees and lights and music. There's lots of different performers and things around the park during this time of year. There's a really awesome pianist who rides a bicycle piano. I have no idea how he does it. He rides the bike, plays the piano, sings, and interacts with the crowd at the same time. He's incredible. Really a talented guy and a great showman. And I got some of my favorite footage ever of this guy. I think the magical vibes just found their way right into my camera, and they were infectious. You don't have to be a good photographer or videographer to film someone as talented as this. You just point the camera in their direction and the rest speaks for itself. The next edition I wasn't quite prepared for, but it's something that literally made me put my food down and make a dash for it, because I'm a huge lover of music, particularly jazz music and brass band music. And this was the Christmas marching band on Main Street, the World Bazaar, performing in front of the tree. I had to see this band performing because it resonated with me so deeply. I loved it. It was incredible. They're so talented, and the magic of Disney, the Christmas vibes, the music, it was one of those things you'll remember forever. Fantastic. Another feature of Tokyo Disneyland during Christmas time is the Christmas version of the Electrical Light Parade. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about the regular version of the Electric Light Parade, which we got to enjoy in that bridging period between Halloween and Christmas. And again, this is something my family really hyped up from our previous visit over 20-something years ago to Tokyo Disneyland. Despite never consciously watching the show, I was very familiar with the music because it's something my family would play over and over again. We had a CD and my older brother would just play it on repeat, so it's ingrained in my head. It's a fantastic parade, and we found the best spot to watch it from was up in Toontown, where you get a really great view of the whole sort of stretch of floats and everything. It's very, very impressive with all the twinkling lights and characters and the soundtrack, of course. The Christmas version was fantastic as well, equally impressive. It was very interesting to see both versions and see the Christmas twist on it as well. I think if I had to choose a favorite, I would say probably the regular version I preferred overall, but the Christmas version was excellent as well. So that wraps up my visit to Tokyo Disneyland. I'm sure my video spoke for itself. I was an absolute big fan of this. It's a very high praise from Mr. YumYum. There's being a fan, and there's being a big fan, and I was a big fan. I love it. What more can I say? Lovely, lovely park. Very, very, very nice. Very, very good. I want to live at Disney. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The tip of my Japan trip. The teeny tiny tip of my big old Japan trip. Because it only goes uphill from here. Next, we got the big boy, Tokyo Disney Sea. The most beautiful theme park in the world. There's no skirting around it. It just is. I may accentuate, I may exaggerate, I may hype things up from now and then, but one thing I don't do is dilly-dally, and Tokyo Disney Sea, it's the real deal. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful, and you're gonna want to see it. And I'll see you next time on Mr. YumYum's Trip Report. Mr. YumYum's bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. I've been recording for hours and I don't know how to wrap it up. A big thank you to the members and sponsors of Team YumYum: Randall, Maloney's Coasters, Kai on the Internet, Boogie Boogie, The Theme Park Ogre, Jordan Casey, Johnny Boy 175, The Downy Cat, Mika, Carrie Jackin, Smashmo the Awesome, Movies Like Everyone, Aston, Breezy, Koala75, Audrey Allen, Senpai's JP Blue Dog, Senpai's JP Red Dog, Wayne Hewitt, Lee Donald, SW Stevie 1, The Kez, and the latest member of Team YumYum, Sienna. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.